I was a first-year teacher at Balboa High School in San Francisco. Halfway into the introduction of my lesson when I was getting observed for the first time by my new grad school program, not even a quarter of the way through my talking points, from a desk in the middle of the classroom, JP gently lobbed a grape straight at my face. I froze as I turned from nervous to panic and tried to figure out what to do, and JP shrugged it off. If you fast forward, you can tell that JP was a handful. Another day, I had just released class, and a small group of kids formed around JP as he was showing off a green object that was still partly in his pocket. His hushed tone told me that I had to investigate further. So I said, JP, can we talk outside for a second? That's all I said, and he booked it. He didn't wait a moment. Totally caught me off guard, and he was gone, outside the classroom, and the students who had been around him were just as surprised as I would, and they followed me to the top of the stairs as we watched JP run out the back door of the school, behind the tennis courts, diagonally across the football field, and over the fence at the farthest possible point away from my classroom. True story. We called it his departure. The next day, when his father came into the school with him and we talked about his departure from school the day before, it turned out that it was just a Rice Krispie treat that happened to be wrapped in green plastic wrapping. Really no big deal, but JP turned it into a spectacle. He was special like that. He had a gift. He exuded this self-confidence that had an amazing ability to inspire action, whether you're talking about his peers or the adults that were working around him. But at the same time, as a teacher, you knew that there was more to the story. I had made the decision to leave the classroom and move here to Seattle, and on my first Thanksgiving after leaving the classroom, I received one phone call from a student. It was JP. It was definitely a phone call that I didn't expect, and it was one that I'll never forget. He was saying thanks, saying that I had gotten through to him, telling me that his teachers mattered and that he was on the right track. It meant the world to me. Last week, when I was speaking with his mother about giving this talk, she told me that this letter that I had written him before I left the classroom had meant the world to him, and that it still meant a great deal to her. She also shared that his older brother, Yusuf, is really happy that we're getting this story out. So I really appreciate you guys being here and being present tonight. You see, JP had been living with bipolar disorder, and the symptoms of the disorder, mixed with his body's intolerance for the medical treatments that were available to him, had made his life a lot to handle. 6 months ago last week, just a week after JP's 21st birthday, he ultimately made the decision to take his own life. I should say that his mother believes with all sincerity that JP has found a happiness in his afterlife that he was unable to find while he was living, but I'm not the only one who feels that this is a heartbreaking story. I taught JP for 2 years when he was a sophomore and a junior in high school, and I know that teachers do so much. So many of you here tonight do so much for our kids, but I have to say I believe that there's more we could do. Would it have made the difference for JP? Would he still be here today? I don't know, but that can't stop us from trying. We say that kids fall through the cracks sometimes, but do we really talk about what those cracks are? We say that it takes a village to raise our children, but sometimes maybe it's all we do is say it takes a village and not do more than that. JP had a village. He had 2 parents, 5 teachers at any given time, a counselor in school, a principal, a therapist outside of school, Boys and Girls Club staff in San Francisco. All of us invested in his well-being, and he still fell through the cracks. As his teacher, I knew that he was in therapy outside of school, but I didn't ask the tough question of how his mental health was affecting him on a day-to-day basis, and that's on me. But at the same time, I'm not here to point fingers. I know, just as many of you know, that with any complex issue, whether you're talking about mental health, public education, you name it, there is a diversity of solutions that's needed because the problem itself is very complex. It's caused by a whole bunch of different factors. And in the same way, there's a diversity of stakeholders that are required to solve any issue as complex as mental health. And do any of us have the power within ourselves to take on an issue as big and vast as mental health? No, not alone, but that can't stop us from trying. We have to do more. And so if you're in here this evening and you know what role you play, that's great, but I need you to do more. If you don't know what role you play in fostering our next generation of leadership, I need you to keep an open mind. Volunteer. Become a big brother or a big sister. Find a cause that gets you fired up. Support organizations that are fostering social and emotional development in our future leaders, like the Boys and Girls Club, or find something that you care about and get involved, because we need you. If you're part of the village, find a way to coordinate the care that you provide to others, because for some of our kids, it takes more than just being there. We have to work together to identify opportunities for them to expand their own horizons, and for us to make sure that our care is additive and not contradictory or counteracting any of the care that they're getting from others. Our kids depend on it, and we need to play a role. We need to do more than just be a village. Thank you very much. This goes out to JP, gone but not forgotten. Thanks again.